I was the one who found her, and I was the one who lied about it. And those two facts are why I'm telling this at all. The Halyard Rift wasn't supposed to kill anyone that shift. It was a debris belt, cold and quiet. The kind of graveyard where old wrecks drift for 100 years before anyone bothers to strip them. My crew ran salvage tugs through it twice a season. I was the mechanic, the one who kept 3 dying engines breathing long enough to get us home. My name doesn't matter for this story. Call me what the others called me, Reyes. We found the escape pod wedged in the ribs of a gutted freighter, half crushed, its beacon dead. Pods like that usually held nothing but frozen air and a corpse or two. I'd cut into a dozen of them over the years and never found more than that. A stiffened body strapped into a crash seat, sometimes a logbook worth salvaging. Nothing that asked anything of me. This one held 6 of us who shouldn't have been breathing, and a 7th who shouldn't have existed at all. The pod's interior was a mess of frost and torn insulation, the kind of cold that gets into a man's teeth before he notices his hands have gone numb. The 5 survivors were huddled at the far end, near the last working heat coil, too worn down to do more than lift their heads when my cutting torch broke the seal. I ran my light along the walls out of habit, checking for structural cracks, and that's when the beam caught the maintenance locker behind the oxygen scrubber. Its door bent just enough to leave a gap. She was folded into that gap, small enough that I almost took her for cargo. Pale lavender skin gone gray with cold. 2 narrow eyes that opened when my light hit them and didn't flinch away. A Tessine child. I knew the species from cargo manifests. Refugees mostly, fleeing a border war 3 systems over. She had a stitched cloth toy clutched against her chest. A little fox with a torn ear, sewn by hands that weren't hers. She didn't reach for me and she didn't shrink from me either. She just watched, the way something watches a door it isn't sure will open kindly. I didn't tell the others right away. I don't have a good reason for that except that I'd already decided, somewhere between the locker door and my own held breath, that whatever came next, she wasn't going in a manifest as recovered property. The pod had 5 survivors of its own crash when we found it. 3 deckhands off the gutted freighter, a systems officer named Voss, and a woman who called herself Doll and claimed she'd been a passenger. 6 adults crammed in a shell built for 8, breathing recycled air, waiting for a rescue that wasn't coming fast enough. I brought them aboard my tug. I brought the child aboard quieter, in a supply crate, and told myself I'd explain it once we were clear of the rift. That was my first mistake. The second was thinking the danger in that pod had died with the freighter. Things started failing on the second day out. Small things. A coolant line that shouldn't have cracked, a comm relay that dropped for no reason, rations that came up short when I'd counted them myself the night before. Voss blamed the cold, said the rift did strange things to old metal, and I wanted to believe him because he'd flown through worse and never lied to me about equipment before. Doll blamed nothing, said less than anyone, watched more than anyone. She had a way of standing in a doorway that made it look like she'd always been there, arms loose, eyes moving over the room like she was cataloging exits. I noticed it and told myself I was tired. I blamed myself most of all, because I was the one who'd let a stranger's cargo onto my ship without knowing what it was worth to somebody. The deckhands kept to themselves, playing cards on an overturned crate near the aft bulkhead, too spent from the crash to think much past their next meal. Voss ran diagnostics twice a day out of habit, the kind of man who needed a checklist between himself and the dark. I kept the crate with the girl in my own bunk room, told her name, Ilsa. She gave it to me on the second night, 1 word, quiet as a held breath, and told no one else. I brought her food when the others slept. She ate carefully, like someone who'd learned that food didn't always keep coming. I found out on the 3rd night, when I caught Doll standing over the crate with a scanner in her hand, and no good reason for it. She didn't deny it. That was the worst part. No scramble, no lie, just a flat, tired voice telling me the girl wasn't refugee cargo at all. She was a courier. Not royal, not chosen, nothing so clean as that. Just a child whose blood carried a genetic key to a border treaty her people's enemies badly wanted broken, and Doll's employers had been hunting that key since the freighter went down. The passenger had ridden that pod for one reason: to find what survived the wreck and make sure it didn't survive the rescue. I asked her why the sabotage if she wanted the girl alive. She said alive was fine. Witnesses weren't. The coolant line, the relay, the short rations, she'd been thinning us out, patient as rust, waiting for a night thin enough to finish the job without 6 people watching. I won't pretend I was calm. I put her against the bulkhead and told her the girl left this ship in one piece, or neither of us did. She smiled like I'd confirmed something she already knew, and told me her partner was still in the pod's wreckage, holding a charge that would open us to space the second she gave the word. There's no clean way to tell the next part. I got the others moving. Voss to the aft lock, the deckhands hauling emergency seals, all of it happening too fast and too slow at once. I got the girl out of the crate myself, wrapped her in my own coat because hers had frozen stiff, and she looked at me the way she'd looked at my light in that locker. Steady, not screaming, like she'd already decided fear wasn't going to be the thing that killed her. Dahl's partner triggered the charge anyway. Not to kill us. To cover their retreat. A hard vent along the aft section meant to buy them a shuttle's worth of time while we scrambled for our lives. It took the aft lock instead of the girl. It took Voss with it, because Voss was the one who stayed to seal the breach so the rest of us didn't follow it out. We caught Dahl at the forward hatch before the shuttle she'd been counting on ever cleared our hull. I won't say what happened to her partner. I'll say only that they didn't get the shuttle either, and that I've never been a man who took satisfaction in that kind of ending, and I didn't start that night. We limped back into range on half a ship and a full crew short. I sat with the girl the whole way, her small weight against my ribs, that torn-eared fox still in her fist. She didn't cry. I want to be honest and say I did, once, when I thought she was asleep and couldn't see it. There was an inquiry, eventually, the kind bureaucrats run when 6 people go missing and 5 come back with a story about sabotage and a child nobody manifested. I told them everything except the part where I'd hidden her first. I've never regretted that omission, not once, not even under oath. She's grown now, in a household 2 systems from where I found her, somewhere I check on but don't visit, because a mechanic with a salvage tug's pay isn't the kind of guardian a treaty key child needs long-term, and I was honest enough with myself to know it. I kept the fox. She left it with me the day she went, pressed it into my hand without a word, the way she did most things that mattered. People ask sometimes why Voss's name isn't on any monument, why the official record calls the halyard rift incident an equipment failure with 1 fatality. I tell them the cold does strange things to old metal. It's not the whole truth. It's the only one I'm willing to give a stranger. What I'll say here, because this is the one place I've agreed to say it plain, we didn't lose Voss to a cracked coolant line or a tired old wreck. We lost him to a stranger patient enough to starve us slow while we called it bad luck, and we kept a child alive anyway, and that's the only ledger I've ever balanced that I'm proud of the math on. The fox sits on a shelf in my cabin. Some nights I still reach for it before I remember it isn't mine to keep watch with anymore. That's fine. It did its job. So did I. So did Voss, in the end, better than any of us.